So, this video is very much not what I intended to make, but I got really ill this week. Almost had to go to hospital because I got really ill, and then last week the heating went, so we had to get that fixed, and it just meant that the Forgefiend that I was trying to build just would not happen. Wouldn't have been able to get it done in time at all. What I did do though is get an airbrush a couple of weeks ago, which I intended to use on the Forgefiend, but I also realised that I'd never used it before, so I wanted to find out what to do. I figured I'd just make a quick video of me learning how to use my airbrush. So the first thing to do is set it up, and it's not that complicated, it's a compressor with a tube that runs to the airbrush itself. So the airbrush just, you press the button on top and it releases the air, and then you pull it back and that lets the paint into the brush and then shoots it out the front. And I had a bit of trouble because the compressor was like really powerful at first. Like there's a bit where I test it out and it just blows things across the room. So I managed to lower the pressure for that after a bit, but it took a while because it was like really stuck. But once I'd got that done, it turns out it was not anywhere near as complicated as I expected it to be. Honestly, more complicated than using the airbrush itself was mixing the paint to the right consistency. I read something saying it had to be like skimmed milk, and that is not a helpful description at all. I ended up just mixing it like 50-50, half thinner and half paint, and that seems to work. I don't know if it needed to be thinner or thicker or what, but it worked. The paint came out of the gun, and I managed to clean it okay later on, so I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The little pipettes I was using were like more annoying than anything, to be honest. They're pretty flimsy, and for the first few times I did it, just nothing would pick up with it. I couldn't pick up any paint with it. Eventually I managed to get some, and mixed it all together and everything was alright after that. It did take a really long time to wash them though. I also accidentally mixed up way too much paint, so I've ended up just keeping that. No, I don't know, maybe it'll dry out, but if it doesn't dry out, I'll try and use it again at some other time. Because I wasn't doing the Forgefiend, I decided to do some of the smaller models I had. I had a couple of options of what to do. I have some Chaos Space Marines that I was gonna do, but they would require a lot more work. But I also had some Necrons that we got from the 9th edition starter sets, so I decided I'd paint those, mostly because there's not a whole lot to them, so I figured there wouldn't be a ton I'd want to do anyway. And I'm only really planning on using the airbrush to cover large amounts, so I was just using it for the base coat with these anyway. I decided to paint them all black, because what other colour would I paint them? I have a lot more Necrons, but I wanted to do one of each of the types I've got, and also just to see, like, one of the models was really easy, and then I tried to go up in like complexity with them. It's not like it's particularly difficult, but I had no idea what I was doing, so I tried to start as simple as possible and work my way up just a little bit. But it went on really easy. I did have some issues with, I mentioned before that you push down to spray air and then you pull back and it releases the paint into the brush, and that's what shoots out. I did have some issues holding the trigger back, essentially. My finger kept slipping forwards, but for one thing, it's one thing I'll just get used to after a bit, and for another, it ended up not being that big of a deal. While I was doing this, I thought I was doing like a really bad job, but my wife looked at it afterwards and said that she thought it was really good. I feel like, to some extent, I keep my paint schemes really simple, mostly because I don't really enjoy it all that much, but also just because I'm not confident in doing it. Once I had the initial coat done on all of the models, I just washed everything. The intention was to empty the remaining paint into a box, but it turns out there wasn't any paint left in the airbrush at the time, so I just rinsed it through a few times, and then took it off to wash it properly later. I always try to keep my weapons in silver, so the weapons were going to be silver. With the scarabs, I couldn't really decide what the weapons counted as, so I ended up not doing anything with them. I think maybe it'd be like all of their claws, but it's a lot of little claws to do, and I couldn't make the decision, so I decided to just leave that altogether. And then it was just a matter of the 2 guns, one each of the Necrons. You'll have to forgive me because I don't remember what they're called. One of the Necrons has got like a big sort of chain cape, and I really wanted to do that in a metallic colour, but the only metallic colour I've got is the silver, which I usually reserve for weapons. I ended up doing it in the silver, but I think I'm going out tomorrow anyway, like as of recording this, which will actually be on Christmas Eve. That's how far out I am, in that usually I would have had this video recorded like a week ago, and then the last week would have been like editing and like voiceover that I'm doing now and all that sort of stuff. But I did everything today because I had just no time the entire rest of the week because of like being ill and that. But yeah, anyway, we're going out tomorrow, so I might buy some gold and redo the cape in gold because I think that will look nicer. I just think it really needs like a metallic-y colour, but I don't like using the silver because the silver is what I use for weapons and it's clearly not a weapon, so you know what I mean. Once I'd got all the silver done, then it was just little bits of red everywhere. With the 2 actual like Necron skeleton people, you know what I mean. I did their eyes in red, and I also put some red on the end of the weapons, so it was kind of like the barrels were glowing a little bit. And then with the scarabs, they've got like 1 eye at the front and like a ball in their back, so I decided to do both of those red on all of them. While I was doing it, I didn't think it looked very good, but now it's dry, I actually quite like it. It was supposed to be a Forgefiend, so I figured I'd include it a little bit at the end. It's not going to be my next video, but it will be... The next Warhammer thing I do will be that Forgefiend, but I have no idea when that's going to be, because I've got stuff planned until like April. You might be waiting that long. At least now I'm much more confident in using the airbrush, and I might do some more stuff eventually, but we'll see.
Special thanks to my patrons, Justin Wood, Hobbs and Koopy Vegeta. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, check out my TikTok and Twitter at Holden Gatsby, and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Holden Gatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to all of my channels. If you want more, you can watch my last video now, but if not, then thanks for sticking around. Bye.